Govinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vacharam, pangum langaite girim. Yat kripa tamham vande, Shri Gurun Dinatarine. Krishna. So today we will start new chapter, ninth chapter. Most confidential knowledge or Raj Guhya Yoga. So as the name suggests, it is the most confidential knowledge. And you see in the first three verses, Krishna explains why he says it is the most confidential knowledge. So let us shloka. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Bhagavanuvacha
Vante Guhya Tamam
idam tu te guhyatamam
Vakshami Anusuyave
pravakshami anasuyave
Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam
jnanam vijnana sahitam
Yajnatva Mokshayase Ashubhat.
yakyatva mokshase shubhat.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Idam tute guhyatamam
idam tu te guhyatamam
Vakshami Anusuyave
pravakshami anasuyave
Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam
jnanam vijnana sahitam
Yajnatva Mokshase Ashubhat.
mokshase shubhat.
Please chant.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva mokshase shubhat.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva mokshase subhat.
Translation and purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Purport. As a devotee hears more and more about Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam. The message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topic regarding Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. This cannot be achieved by association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotee are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives him intelligence to understand science of Krishna in association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such an association and tries to assimilate that knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this ninth chapter matters more confidential than any he has already discussed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, first chapter is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book, and in the second and third chapter, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the seventh and eighth chapter are specially related to devotional service, and because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But the matters which are described in the ninth chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Therefore, it is called most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in material world. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has sincere desire to render devotional, loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in, in the conditional state of material existence. He has to be considered liberated. Okay. Similarly, we find in Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. Now, this first verse has specific significance. The word idam jnanam, this knowledge refers to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, obtaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is thus cleared of material contamination, one can understand the science of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living entity is not material is not sufficient. That may be beginning of spiritual realization, but one should recognize the difference between activities of body and spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not body. In the 7th chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his different energies, inferior and superior, and all these material manifestation. Now in the chapter 9, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. The Sanskrit word anusuyave in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly or envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So such commentaries should be carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personality, this chapter will be very beneficial. So this is the like Bhagavad Gita main chapters are like 9th and 10th chapter. So if we say like Bhagavad Gita into 3 parts, first 6 chapters, middle 6 chapters, and the last 6 chapters. The middle 6 chapters are related to Bhakti Yoga. And on those 6 chapters, these 2 chapters, 9 and 10th, are more important because they talk on the Kevala Bhakti or pure Bhakti devotional service. So Krishna, if we see in the last chapter, end of the last chapter, attaining the Supreme, he told Arjuna that Bhakti Yogi is far superior than the other yogis, and he gets all the results obtained by the other practice, plus he gets the supreme destination, Param Dhama. So, the chapter 8, glorification of the devotee or the bhakti yogi is done. And now the same mood is continued in this chapter where Krishna is going to explain more confidential. So first confidential was second, third chapter where body and soul was described. 7th and 8th chapter where actually starting of Bhakti Yoga, where we are Krishna, who is Krishna, why we should worship Krishna, all these details and his powers and energies. And then 8th chapter also gave how to attain him, not the other process where the people who follow the other process where they reach. And now here it will be pure bhakti, and so in which the object of worship is Krishna and the Keval Bhakta devotee is also described. This is more deeper because now the relationship will also come into because devotees nature is also described. So here important word is anusuyave. So if you are envious, so Krishna says to Arjuna, because you are not envious. Of course, Arjuna is completely surrendered to Krishna and is asking for the guidance. So he is not trying to uh, take decision on his own. He's dependent on Krishna. So when we try to control the situation by our way, so See, in our day-to-day life or our spiritual life, the situations in which we are put into are actually indications of some higher purposes or some other purposes than what we are doing. And if we can somehow or other understand why this situation is happening, then actually we can take proper decisions at proper time and align to the situations. And that actually gives us the mentally peaceful situation to carry out the bhakti. Of course, it requires a lot of patience, tolerance, and courage to take and understand what exactly is required. But that is the way of doing the pure bhakti. So we don't try to control, we surrender to whatever the situation comes. So this chapter, Krishna is saying why it is Guhyatamam, because the second line says Jnana Vijnana Sahitam. So here the Gyan is of course the energies of the Supreme Lord. So that comes in as a bhakti part. To understand the supremacy, we understand how is his energy. So that glorification of his energies is given. And Vijnana, this is so Gyan along with Vijnana, Vijnana Sahitam. So Gyan is also given, and how you can realize that knowledge, that is also told. So that makes it very secret. So the Bhagavad Gita is not like that. We only 7 people can read Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is available everywhere. And anybody can read Bhagavad Gita. Nobody stops anyone from reading the Bhagavad Gita, right? So how can we say this is an open secret? So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the real meaning of the verses, if it is delivered as it is, then we can understand. But if we put our own thoughts into the meanings or into the shlokas understanding, then the real purpose is not solved. That's why then the real meaning is lost. So that's why it is open secret. It's open, but if you work with the devotee of the Lord who is trying to become a Keval Bhakta, he can tell the real purpose because he don't have any personal motives. He don't want followers. He don't want anybody to praise him. He don't want to control anything. So whatever Krishna is telling to Arjuna, he is as it is telling. But so many times it happens that people try to manipulate the meaning as per the philosophy they support, and that's why the real meaning is lost. And then it becomes a secret that even if it is open, people don't understand it. So this chapter is very interesting. Of course, all chapters are interesting, but this is more deep for the bhakti. So generally, people say that Bhagavad Gita is talking about yoga and its practical guide. And but if we see all these chapters from 7, these are explaining about the Supreme Lord and how we can attain Him, how we can understand Him, how we can do the bhakti. All these things are very, Krishna is telling Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita was told in 18 minutes, 18 minutes or so. So this was spoken to Arjuna in a flow, questions and answers. And in very short time he explained. And we are still trying to understand Bhagavad Gita after 5,000 years also. So that gives the importance of this literature, right? Bhagavad Gita. That's why it is living Shastra. So in this chapter, as we move forward, we'll see how the pure bhakti, how if we do the pure bhakti, how we can attain the Supreme. Krishna sentence in the last chapter was, if you think of me and if you engage, think of me, Sarva Kaleshu, always think of me, and Mano Buddhir, engage your mind and intelligence, then you will come to me. And how that can be done, how we can actually focus on and remember Krishna that is told in this chapter. So this chapter is actually a pathway to that uh, step where we can, at the end of the time of our life, we can remember him. And but even after reading this, many times people don't get the real meaning of, the real purpose of this chapter. So that's why it is Guhyatamam. It's the most confidential knowledge that I'm going to tell you, Arjuna, because Arjuna has only goal. It's to follow whatever Krishna wants him to do, follow Krishna's instruction, no other motive. So we'll also see as we move forward how this chapter explains about the pure bhakti and pure devotee. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any comments, points anybody would like to add? Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining on Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much.